In the previous video, we've created the trigger component, which will act as a base class for all other trigger implementations. Now, under the triggers directory, let's create a new file called FormTrigger.view. And from within this file, we're going to start with the script again and export default and the object literal here. And let's first import our new trigger. So import trigger from current directory trigger, and we can now use it as a mixin. So mixins trigger. After this, we are going to have some properties, so props, and actually we're going to have only one under the form trigger. It's going to represent the event that we want to fire when the trigger has been clicked. So fire, let's call it, and it's going to be of the type string. And required will be set to true, because we need to know what sort of event we want to trigger with this given trigger. So created is the next method we're going to use, and under created we're going to register two listeners, event bus, listen to when the form has been submitted, because when we submit the form, the submission started event will be triggered. So submission started hyphen, and it's going to be concatenated with this group that we have as a property on the trigger. And when this event is being triggered, then what we want to do, we first want to check if this is submit. If the given trigger is of a submit type, then we are going to set this processing property to true. Then we are going to have another event listener. Let's just copy all this after that, and it's going to be submission ended. And here we're not going to be checking if it's submit or not. We just set the processing to false. After this, we're going to provide our own implementation of the trigger methods. So methods and trigger, which will first check if the given trigger is disabled. So this is disabled, and if it's disabled, then we're not going to do anything, so return. Otherwise, we are going to use event bus again, and we're going to fire event this fire, the property on this given trigger, and we concatenate it with hyphen, and after that the group name, so this group. And now, as you can see, my ID automatically imports these classes. We don't need to import it because event bus has been registered globally, so it's available to us without actually being imported. So we are listening to the submission started and submission ended events, but we haven't actually triggered them from anywhere. Let's open our form and then wrap a class. And from within the methods, let's have a look at the start processing Ajax call event. Here, rather than just dispatching the disable started event, we're going to dispatch the array, because the first one will be this submission started concatenated with this group. So when the form starts request, both of these events will be triggered, and the same goes for when it's finished. So from within the stop processing Ajax call event, we are going to fire submission ended with the group name as well. Now let's add our new form trigger to our components. Let's duplicate this line and call it form trigger, and it's going to be under components, triggers, and form trigger. So that's now registered. We can close both of these files, and let's recompile all the assets. So npm run dev. Now let's go back to our editor, because what we need to do is to create a new include file. So if we go back to a template partials, we're going to create a new partial here, and this one will be called form buttons detached. And again, .blade.php, my ID automatically adds this extension. And I'm quickly going to copy and paste the structure here, and we'll discuss it in just a second. So what we're using here is 3 form triggers. First one is for the submits to reflect exactly the same structure as the ones within this form buttons attached file. Now we have FormTrigger with a group. Group is being pulled through the variable because we are going to be including this file later on within our main index.blade.php, and we will pass the group name through as an argument, so we can then use it as a variable rather than declaring this strictly here by hand for each of these triggers. Now, so we have a group. The first one is a submit, so I've specified that it is a submit by using this is submit set to true. Then fire event, I want fire submit, so it's going to be submit hyphen and then the name of the group. This sort of event will be triggered. Then we're going to have for resting label is going to be submit CSS class, just the one that I'm using with as a foundation. For icon, I want this check, and for working icon, I want to change it to this spinner icon. The label will remain the same as it is. If we just go back to trigger, you'll see the default one for working labels processing. So that's what it's going to be. I don't want to overwrite it. Now for the other trigger, we have a event reset, then label reset. For the clear, we have clear with the label clear. So that's our three buttons. Let's now import them to our main index.blade. Above the form, because we want to use them outside of the form, we are going to include them again. We are using here blade templates within Laravel, so template. Then we go for partials and form buttons detached this time, and we are going to pass group as an argument, so array group, and the group name is update form. So now this group is available as this variable within this partial. So let's now preview everything in a browser. If we refresh the page, there we go, our submit buttons, which are outside of the form. These are form triggers. These are buttons that are inside of the form tag. If we hit on submit, you can see that submits the form because the event is being triggered. Let's just open the console. If we go to view console, see the events, and I'm going to clear them all first. If I hit on submit, you see the submit update form has been triggered, and that in return submitted the form. Obviously we have validation. We can reset it as well with these buttons, clear it. As you can see, input is being cleared as well, the same as with the buttons within the form. So clearing, resetting, submitting, all works exactly same way. Now, if we were to disable the form, let's just go back to the editor. And if we open this index blade, let's just specify that disabled is set to true. You'll see that all of these buttons, not only the ones inside of the form, will be disabled. So let's refresh the page, and there we go. Everything has been disabled. Everything with the same group name has now been disabled. So let's go back to the editor. Let's reverse this change, and I think we are ready for the next video.